So once more, I just want to welcome everyone to our call tonight. Each month we get together like this and talk about all things in connection to ancestral healing and ancestral reverence and anything that intersects with that from cultures all over the world and in the cultures that we're kind of co-creating today. My name is Angela Blueskies, and I am a sound healer, and I also practice shamanic healing and ancestral healing. And so this work is very close to my heart, and I'm always super excited to be able to engage others in this conversation because I hear it coming up more and more now. More and more people are interested in doing things like DNA testing and genealogical research. And among those who are called to do spiritual healing work, many of us see that there are things in our families of origin that are challenging and problematic. And so the work of ancestral healing is really kind of up right now. So I'm always very excited that we can gather in this way. And I want to begin by introducing my special guest tonight, my dear friend and sister and collaborator and all good things, Padma. And so, Padma, will you take just a moment and introduce yourself and tell us about you and what you do and what you love? Padma, I'm not able to hear you right now. Oh no.
Hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly. I'm so
Okay.
glad.
Okay. My name is Padma Wine, and currently I have a shamanic empowerment center in Greenbelt, Maryland, and we do shamanic trance dance, drumming, yoga, guided meditation, and silent meditation, and a couple of special events. So that website is shamanic empowerment center.com if anyone wants to look at that. But I'm very inspired to teach the shamanic trance dance because it's been just an amazing empowering tool for me in getting really instant messages from myself, in a very natural way, and just really want to bring that to the community.
Thank you, Padma. And for those of you who are with us and are curious, you don't have to worry about writing it down. I will send an email that is a follow-up to this call, and it will be linked in there so that you can reach out to Padma if you're curious to learn more and check out that website. And so I invited Padma to be with us tonight because we have been doing the work of ancestral healing together over the course of, gosh, a year and a half, almost 2 years now.
2 years, yeah.
And it's been a super powerful process, and she has received a lot of guidance on ritual offerings and things of that nature. And with this being so close to all of the big holidays that are celebrating the thinning of the veil and the passage between worlds, I thought it would be a wonderful conversation for her to contribute to tonight. But before we go any further, I just want to take a moment so that we can all shift out of being in the busy outer world and really come present into this space. And so I will guide us in a little bit of centering and then just offer a prayer. So if you are just now joining the call and didn't catch the whole introduction before, I welcome you. I'm so glad you're here. And I'm just looking so forward to what this call will bring. It's always so wonderful to share in this way. So if you would just let yourself get comfortable in your space and close your eyes. And if your feet are touching the floor or the ground, really bring your awareness there. And if your feet are not touching the ground, that's also perfectly fine. Feel your body where it's resting on your chair or your seat. And let yourself connect there. And connecting with the breath as it moves in and out. And let yourself really arrive in this moment. And notice, how does it feel to be you today? And with each breath, letting go of tension, letting go of thoughts and worries and distractions. And just coming together here. And I would just want to start by offering so much gratitude for this opportunity for us to be together on this night, connecting here in this point from all over, who knows how far we each are from each other in distance, but we are together in this space. And what a gift that our lives and our interests and likely our ancestors have brought us to be together so that we can listen more deeply and start asking questions about what it means to be in relationship with the ancestors and to bring healing where needed. I call the elders, the masters, the teachers, the wise ones, the guides, the guardians, and our radiant, well grandmothers and grandfathers, our ancestors. Come and join us in this space. Help to hold us centered in the questions that are needed at this time. Help us to know what we need to know. Help us to learn how to connect with the heart and how to make offerings from a place of love and generosity and respect. And for this and all the ways that our lives are blessed every single day, we thank you. And so I just want to start by sharing a reading from one of my teachers and someone who is probably one of the most instrumental influences in calling people together to re-engage with ritual, and especially ritual connected to ancestral things. And this person is Malidoma Somé. The book that I'm going to share from is called Ritual. And if you are not familiar with this, it is truly wonderful. So I'm just going to share some of his words with you to start. So we're going to be talking tonight about making offerings to the ancestors and different ways to be in ritual space connected to that. And Malidoma says that modernity sees death as an end, while the traditional world sees death as a transition. And I love that. It's so powerful because it really helps me to see the difference between the way I was raised in modern American culture and the ways that I've been blessed enough to encounter as I have connected with elders from traditional cultures. And in this book, he shares that there are many different ways of engaging in ritual, but there are 4 really basic tenets of engaging in ritual, especially in connection with ancestors. The first is invocational. Humans call on non-humans for a specific purpose. And to meet as a group without invoking spirits means that you're on your own. The second is based in dialogue. We enter into a kind of solemn dialogue with the spirit and with ourselves. When we call in somebody who doesn't have a physical form, then we are giving a different contour to the place we are sharing with other people. And then the third element is repetition. The actions and structures in ritual are the same. When you pour a libation, the way that you pour, it stays the same. So the ways that we do things, we can do many different things, but ritually, they tend to kind of follow a pattern. And finally, opening and closure. The ritual space is opened whenever the spirit is invoked. The ritual space is closed when the spirit is sent away. The spirit is sent away symbolically, but not dismissed. And this happens when we tell the spirit that what we embarked upon is over and we are ready to resume normal life. We don't just call on people and leave them as if we had forgotten them. They will invent a way to remind us of their being there. And I love this, especially in terms of ancestral ritual, because just even now, as I offer this prayer, we called in all of these beautiful, supportive presences and beings, all of your ancestors, my ancestors, all of the ancestors of the places that we call home and we live, to be with us, to guide this conversation so that we're able to engage in a way that is wise and meaningful. And when we come to the end, it's good to say thank you. And so that is ultimately the piece of ritual that I hope that we will talk about tonight the most. And so, but before we go into having Padma share some of this amazing ritual that she has been engaging in over the last, it's almost 9 months, right?
Yeah.
I thought I would just hold a little space so that anyone who wishes can name a person that you have lost in your life. It could be someone who has died recently or someone who has died a long time ago who still is very important in your heart. To just name them, and that in doing that, we'll call them into the space with us here. Padma, would you begin?
Yes, I'll name my mother, Catherine Gervais.
Welcome. And so as you're ready to call in your person, if you wish, simply unmute yourself and name them.
Evelyn.
Go ahead.
Stephen Bertrand Hansen.
I'll call on my dad, Chuck Wade.
And so someone is calling in their mother, Gail Susan Harris, who transitioned in 1996.
My father, Richard Allen Cooper, and my grandmother, who was like my mom, Leah Margaret Kelly.
I'd like to name my friend Bhakti and my grandparents and grand aunts and uncles.
I'll name my father, Buford Lewis Mullins, my mother, Carolyn Ann Worley Mullins, and my teacher, who recently transitioned also, Diego Palma. Any others?
Yeah, I'll name my well and bright grandparents and great grandparents, and also, if it's permissible, my cat Spice, who passed away and has been coming into my heart a lot recently.
And for any of you who are calling in on a phone, and if you didn't hear before, you're welcome to send a text message to me at 443-794-7485, and I will happily share what you're asking and contributing. So someone would like to honor their grandfather, Fred Poss.
My grandmother, Minnie Lee Hansen.
And so I just want to offer so much gratitude for these names and the places that these people have had in our hearts and our lives, and offering deep prayers for their wellness, and that they are blessed in all ways, and that each of these lineages that they are a part of now are also blessed with wellness and healing where needed. And the work of ancestral healing is deep ritual work. And just as it can be hard for one to imagine entering into a ritual like the one that we have just co-created here on Zoom from wherever we are in our homes, it is equally possible to be in deep ritual space with our ancestors in any way that feels appropriate. And sometimes that's as simple as lighting a candle. Sometimes it's as simple as making the space in our hearts to honor in whatever way is right in the moment. And Lauren is asking a wonderful question. How do we know if our person is well and bright? And that is one of the most important elements of ancestral healing. I would say that the first thing that you should trust is your own gut. If someone is in your sphere of awareness and this person comes to you in your dreams, let's say, or you feel them with you and you feel their influence in your life, if that feels like a benevolent, positive thing, then I would say there's no reason to presume that they're not well and bright. However, if they tend to come into your life and your dreams and chaos happens, or you feel like a sinking feeling in your stomach, or you notice that in those dreams that they come into that there are problems, it can be something to look at. It can be something to call for healing with. It can definitely be something to create boundaries around. And that is a super important part of the work of ancestral healing. And I just want to thank you for that question, because so much of the time we assume that because we love these people, they're all good. And sometimes they are, and sometimes they're not. So I just want to turn over the conversation to my beautiful sister Padma. And I'd like you to share a little bit about this process that you have been in ancestral healing. If you would tell us the lineage that you're working on and how it kind of unfolded, that would be super beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a lot, but I think that a couple of key points is, working on my mother's line. Just very simply, my grandmother, who's more recently passed, even than my mother, she was cremated and buried in her yard, in her rose bushes. And then my grandfather was tending the land, and then when he was put into assisted living by his sons and passed away, so I went down my grandmother's lines, and she said, I don't have a home because basically the land's been sold. Nobody's there. I have no place for anybody to come and see me. So I said, well, how can I help you? And she says, she wanted me to put a red birdhouse in my rose garden. And so, to honor her and to help her to have a home. And so I put that in my rose garden, and, I light incense and whatever, but it was just a simple thing. But for her, I could feel it was such a big thing. And similarly, along that same line, my another ancestor, I was asked to do really good healing for that line. I would do 9 months of consecutive despacho ceremonies, but the despacho had to be put into the water, like a river. I live next to a river. So I am through 8 of 9. The 9th will be this weekend. So it's been a journey, and I have really gotten so much from that, so many blessings and downloads and insights since I've begun this work. It's really been incredibly powerful for me.
And so for those of you who may not be familiar with this practice of despacho ceremony, despacho is a tradition that comes from the high Andes of Peru and probably beyond Peru, where a nature mandala is created, and every object that is put into the nature mandala is put in with prayers and intentions. And this tradition was gifted to me about 15 years ago by an elder in the region of Cusco, Peru. And I was encouraged to do it in a way that was not so tied to their original approach. And the elder told me it's more important that this is happening than you're doing it our way. And so, Padma, I would love to hear what your way has evolved into for making these offerings. What does that look like?
Well, I had the advantage of learning from you in Peru with the elder, or with the people there, and so what it looks like for me is, I create something beautiful based on a lot of different kind of tools I'll have in my kit. For example, herbs and flowers and candies and things like that, and I will put in kind of what I feel like my heart is calling me to put an intention in that thing. For example, one time, it was really about transformation, and I happened to have a snake skin that I had found on a trail that I put in. Another time it was very watery, and I put in a lot of like seashells and sea salts and just, anything kind of watery that was calling to me. So, and I was just kind of really interacting with spirit while doing it. And then folding it up, and then I take it down and, I siege it, and I take it down to the river and ask the river spirit to carry it and thank it and put it in.
Beautiful. And in doing this kind of long-term ritual in conjunction with bringing healing to your ancestors, what has your experience been like with that?
So, I feel like it's helped me to develop a sense of closeness and cultivate more daily conscious awareness of these existing relationships that are happening all the time. Just to be kind of touching in with them more frequently, and knowing that the veil truly is thin. And again, I have power over my own life, and I know that, and there are clear boundaries, and yet I feel like I'm getting so much more kind of assistance and acceleration and support in my life. And that's just showing up in physical transformations, starting a new business, and just a lot of positive things for me so far. There's been some challenges in those positive break points or thresholds. For example, I'll have sometimes some fear around a change. And then when I finally just do it, then it's all fantastic. And I can't believe I ever had a problem around it. So, so it's just like breaking through these little places within myself, but I feel like I'm getting so much more support, and I don't feel ever alone. I feel so much more connected and held when I'm going through my work.
I love it. And so the other thing that I wanted to ask you about is the role of dance in ancestral reverence for you, because I know that's been such a huge part of your path. And for me personally, music has been such a huge part of that path in making offerings, not just of material things, but of using the body in various forms of expression. Can you share a little bit about that?
So the dance, because this is a different kind of a dance where, you're blindfolded, you're not looking around the room, comparing yourself, this dance is so grounded and in the body. And what's been shown to me over and over and through my ancestral work is that, our bodies come from the earth and the land, and spirit comes from a different place, but the body is so important to understand the earth that we came from, to understand its history, and the history and the stories that are here in the earth are in our body, and the stories of our ancestors are in our body. So the dance is a tool and a modality through which you really get into deep relationship and just really let go of the mind and get into the body. And I can ask questions of my ancestors, of my earth, or even otherworldly spirits, and my body will take me to those places very naturally and easily. So it's been a powerful tool, and yeah, it keeps deepening and deepening for me.
I love it. I can't wait till the day comes when I'm able to come and participate in that dance with you, because I know how powerful it's been. I love it. So I just want to pause for a moment and welcome any questions, any thoughts, any of your personal sharing that is in the flow with where we are at this point. And if you feel called to share, just unmute yourself and feel free.
Right.
I see. Aida, I wasn't hearing you for a second.
Okay. So my question is, if you've had experience, so recently I was told that there are witches on the side of my mother's lineage, and they dabbled in dark arts, and me and my sister suspected it, but it's something that we want to do an ancestral healing from. Do you have experience with that, or can you tell me a little bit about, how that works in families? We always said there's a dark cloud in our family, things like that, but I just want to put it in perspective as far as, like, I think probably most people's history maybe had some of that in there. Yeah.
Thank you. That's an awesome question. The first thing that comes to my mind just right off the bat is, were these women witches or were they healers? And is it the same as this dark cloud? Is that them, or is that something else? And ultimately, like, that is up to each person to discern for themselves. I've worked with a lot of women who've uncovered what they would label witches in their family lineages, but those are the power women. Those are the women who were labeled witches because they didn't play by the rules. They weren't the passive, submissive women that followed the patriarchy or that followed the dominant culture, whatever that looked like. These are the women who had their power and came together often with each other and did simple things like sometimes healing with plants, or helping to get a baby out of a woman's body or whatever, which is not really witchy at all in the big picture. So I think it would be really crucial for you to create strong boundaries for yourself, and if you're doing this with other family members, to create those strong boundaries for each of you and to create a container with that, and then to explore it intuitively. Like, is what you're sensing something that we would label witchy? Like, is it actually dark, or is it just powerful? And then if there is darkness that is there, most people have ancestral lineages with wounding and traumas and pain, and like, the world is full of that. But to discern the difference between those things, I think, is really important. I have two lineages that are powerful witchy lines, and one of them works with the energy of lightning. Like, she has a lightning bolt lasso that she uses to control everything, which is amazing. That's how she says enough. I have another lineage that has a guide that works with like thunderstorms and tornadoes and earthquakes, and it's super, super potent energy that would absolutely be labeled witchy depending on where we are in history and where we are in the world and who's leading the conversation. And I've traced those witchy kind of energies through those lines. These are powerful women. And I see it in myself for sure. I'm a strong, opinionated, like, I'm much more Kali Ma than like graceful, loving, gentle mother every day of the week. And I'm grateful for that energy because I've been able to really reclaim it in myself from my ancestors, and they're really happy too because it's not underground anymore. But that said, if you're sensing also some kind of dark energy that feels like it's affecting you and others in your family, it's important to work in a protected ritual way so that you can discover what's at the root of that. And there's so many different approaches to ancestral healing, but the approach that I work with, it specifically asks the guide on the line, or a guide on the line that is well and strong and bright and protective, to do that deep work with you and to really help to create strong boundaries. Because in my experience at least, like, I can't heal my ancestors. I'm a living person here in the body. My perspective is too small, but I can work together with ancestral guides and other benevolent forces to bring healing where it's needed. And I love that because it takes the weight off. Like, so much of what I observe in the world today is that those of us who are called to this path of healing and transformation want to like claim it and do it and get involved. But there are some parts of it where we actually are limited in our capacity because here we are on earth, just little humans. And how wonderful to go right back to what Malidoma was saying in the reading I shared with you. We have to engage in relationship with the unseen forces in order to receive their support, to receive their assistance, because they have access to a lot more than we do. Is that helpful? Beautiful. Thank you. That's a wonderful question, and one that I always think is important. So somebody has a question here. Sheila says, if you were too smart, intuitive, or beautiful, you could be said to use dark magic. And yeah, I feel like the feminine, the powerful feminine, has gotten a really bad rap in that regard for way too long. And so thank goodness we're living in a time where things are changing. We can sit here and have this awesome conversation without fear. Others, questions, sharings, anything that you'd like to bring to this discussion?
I have a question.
Welcome.
Thanks. So how do you start to refine or tune to discernment when it comes to knowing which of your lines to work with, primarily, kind of for your own healing and your lineage's healing? I feel very called to my father's mother's line because of the relationship I had with my grandmother while she was here. But I also feel some squickiness around that because there's a lot there. And
Yeah.
I feel that. And I don't know if it's like the right line to dig into first. It feels kind of intense. So I wanted to ask about like that type of sequencing, or kind of not necessarily jumping full. And I know that I do this. I tend to, I can out this, like I tend to gravitate towards the intensity. And that's been a lesson for me to like pull back and do one toe in the water until I go into the pond versus like jumping in and cannonballing and then like freezing my ass off. I don't want to do the same thing here because I feel like this is a very special, layered, important kind of work and has a lot of potential ramifications for my own health and boundaries and everything else. So I just wanted to ask the group if there was any type of wisdom or anecdotes or anything about that, as I'm a bit of a newbie to this. So
that is a fabulous question, and so good that you're bringing that to the table. I am like you. I'm a jump in feet first and then say, oh no, what did I do kind of person also. And are you a fire sign by chance?
No, I'm a Cancer Virgo moon.
I'm a Cancer Aries moon. So
I have Leo with Venus and Mars. So
all right, well, there's the fire in the chart.
Yeah.
I would say that in the approach that I have been learning and that I offer with clients, we begin with assessment, a process of looking in the direction of the 4 primary lineages, which would be your mother's mother and father, and your father's mother and father, and to just peer in a very protected way to see what's happening and to see where the biggest messes are and where the greatest wellness is. And it usually turns out that people find different levels of problems and wellness through their lines. I often encourage people to not take the dive into the deepest end of the pool first, because it's sometimes good to work with a lineage that is less, was your word squiggy?
Squicky, yeah.
Squicky, that was great. I love it. That's perfectly descriptive. If you start with a lineage that is less tricky like that first, it's likely to be able to come to wellness quicker, and you will have a well lineage and a guide that you're in relationship with on your side before diving into the lines that are messier. So when I first began this work after my father died, My father's mother and father's lines were kind of really alluring to me because I didn't know those grandparents. They had died before I was born. And my mother's mother and father I knew very well. And one of the lineage was like, fuck you, get out of here. I don't care about this stupid thing. And the other one was like trying to pull me in. And I was very wary of that energy of pulling me in. And so I began with my father's mother's line, which was very neutral feeling. And it was very benevolent and very easy. And I was able to create relationship with the guide there and begin to work through that in a way that felt very safe and very supportive and nurturing. And it was like I had been waiting to connect with that particular energy my whole life. So it felt like a homecoming. And I am really glad that I was guided to approach it in that way. It felt safe so that I could deal with the bigger mess down the line a little bit. So I think that is a really good thing. But I also work with clients sometimes who are impatient and don't want to have to go through that whole process. And I think that it's best to go through that process. It's like going to the dentist and you're like, I have a tooth that hurts. And the dentist is like, let's take an x-ray to see if there are other teeth that may also be contributing to that. It's smart to do that, right? And I feel like this is kind of similar in that regard. But in whatever way you choose to approach it, if what I've shared with you makes you impatient or you don't feel called to that, I think the most important thing to do is make sure that before you enter into that, you have some really clear ideas on how to create strong boundaries for yourself, how to clear heavy energy for yourself, and how to relate with some other force in the universe, whether it is simply love or kindness or the trees or I don't know. There's so million things that we can form relationship with that can be guides and support in this before getting involved with something that may be unwell. And it's possible that the most recent ancestors in a lineage are good. After my father died, I had the incredible blessing to be able to go and work with Malidoma Somé directly in doing an ancestralization ritual. And I ancestralized my father and I ancestralized my great-grandmother. And amazing, like there are two ancestors that are bright lights, totally well and held and transitioned and fully elevated as ancestors on those lines. But they were attached to lineages that were not. And that's actually what continued to push me forward into the work that I now am involved with, because having a couple of great ancestors is amazing and it's important, but what about everything before that? Like where is wellness? Like how far back do I have to go to find wellness? How far back do I have to go to find a time in my people's history where we were able to do ancestral work at all? And I think that depending on where ancestry is from and what our makeup is, like that can be recent or it can be really, really long. And for me, like I found that most of my lineages, it was like 1,500, 2,000, maybe even more years since those practices were allowed to exist fully. And so finding that wellness and then working to bring it through the entire lineage is so important, because then whatever heaviness is being passed down along the way gets cleared. So I don't have any children myself, and I wasn't called to have any children myself. But after I was able to do this work and clear 8 ancestral lineages, my ancestors started tapping me on the shoulder and saying, hey, Angela, now's the time to have a baby. And I was like, dude, I'm in my 40s, not happening. But it was still like I could feel the gift of that, because that mess doesn't have to be carried any longer. And how wonderful is that? And like, it's, I mean, not that it's the only time to do it, of course, like there's never a bad time to make the ancestors like well through connection with the guides and through ritual acts and all of this goodness that we're talking about. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. I haven't gotten too far off topic, Lauren.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful.
Of course.
Is it okay to mention something really quickly?
Please.
So this Samhain, I did a candle ritual for my 4 grandparents, alone in the woods in an eco village, and I've been trying to decide how to prioritize working with one of my lineages, and for some reason, like what I came up with just intuitively was to have each candle, and they were different lengths, but my grandfather's candles were the same lengths. My grandmother, who I was very close to, had the longest candle, and then my other grandmother had like a candle with a glass protection around it. It's just happened that way, and I let them burn and something inside me was like, the last one to be lit is the one you should start with, which ironically for me, my grandfather who passed away when I was 2, that was the first candle to go. And then it was my grandmother who I was very close with, which is actually the right order of their transition. She passed a few years ago. And then my grandfather on my mom's side went, and then my grandmother who had the shortest candle, my mom's mom was the one that was left and was like burning throughout the night and then into the morning. And I was like, okay, I think that's it. But like, wouldn't have intuitively, I don't know, like outside of that space, like my mind wouldn't have been like, that's the one, because we weren't as close. So I just wanted to see like if that was something that resonated with anyone else, kind of in like how they started their own work. And yeah, that's it. And then I'll stop talking.
What I love about what you shared is that you created a ritual space to honor them, and then you made yourself available to listen. And you, at least as far as you shared, you didn't seem to really have an agenda. You were literally coming open and saying what is needed, and you got an answer. And how beautiful is that? Like, I think the thing that most Western people struggle with in all of this is having enough faith in the process of listening to these forces of the unseen and trusting them, like, so that we actually follow the instructions. And when I work with people, so much of the time, like in the early stages, that's what we're navigating. Like, I'm getting these things, but am I just making this up? And okay, maybe you're making it up, but like, are you thinking of these things on purpose, or is it just coming from somewhere? And where is it coming from? And why? And I don't know. I'm a very logical minded person. I like research and science and all those things for sure. And I, in spite of having had lots of life experiences that have pushed me completely out of that part of my mind into just listening, like, I like to question things. I think it's good to question things. And this work has helped me to find a balance between that. And if I am going to my ancestors, I'm going to guides, and asking for them to guide me, if I don't listen, then what am I doing? And it's good to be discerning. Like, are you listening to something that helps you to feel safe and well-resourced inside? Or does it make you feel weird and manipulated? And if that ever comes up, then you are in something that you don't want to mess with. And there are lots of ways to work with that, and to clear it, and to create protection and boundaries, and to close the door on anything like that, because it is not our job to carry that. Not now, not ever.
Thank you.
Of course. And I'm going to make the space for maybe one more question or sharing. Someone else has something to bring forward?
Yes, this is Sheila.
Hi, Sheila.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
Good. I'm glad to see you. Now, if we have a question, as of in this last one, where we're not sure and it wasn't where we would normally intuitively go, would you travel to the upper world or the lower world to ensure that the spirit that you're working with is well intended, rather than work within the middle world or the...
Personally, I would listen to my own gut. If I got an answer and it felt safe and it felt clear, then I would really try to discern when I was getting caught up in my own thoughts. And it's the skeptic mind, right? We always second guess and want proof and want to make sure and all of those things. But I think it's such an essential practice to ask a question, to stay tuned in, like with your body and with your own intuitive sense. Like, if you get an answer and it doesn't send off any red flags in your body right away, the mind could just be busy and spinning things. So I don't know that I would journey to either of those worlds initially. If something came up that was unclear and that was helping me to feel tangled up and really uncertain, then I might consider doing a journey to a different place. But in ancestral work, I've never needed to do that, quite honestly. It's never been necessary. Thank you for your question, Sheila. Padma, I just want to make a space for you to share anything else that has come up for you as you're listening here, because I know you have so much experience with this yourself.
Well, I mean, I wasn't sure if I was going to share this because it's just really powerful for me and it's just happening today. But, you know, I went through my father's line with you, still working on that line. I was requested some powerful things and, you know, I'm almost 50 years old. So for me to go out and get a tattoo is not something I ever would picture myself doing. So I went out and got something that I was asked, you know, shared with to get, and I did that today, and I'm still reeling from all of the downloads and information I've been getting. It's been super powerful, and I've almost had to just be like, okay, let's just dial it back like a lot so that I can kind of get all of this in. And it was funny because on my way in, I was thinking to myself, I can't even believe this is happening. I can't even believe I'm doing this. The last 3 days I've been kind of stressing a little bit about it. But then at the same time, I keep checking in with the ancestors and they keep saying, no, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Just trust, just trust. And I'm like, okay. So I go in and I do this thing and I look at my body after it's done and it was like, it's been there my whole life. And I felt so connected to it. And I cried because I was like, that's who I am. It was like an instant recognition. It was like it came up from underneath, not was put on top. And I feel like coming home type of feeling. And that is nothing of what, and like all the feelings I've had around the fear and anxiety, total ego and mind construct stuff, it just fell away in like a second. And I was like, I can't believe I've never had these, you know? So like I said, I'm not finding maybe the right words, but it's powerful, powerful work. And I'm just amazed by it.
And so this tattoo is of symbols that you were given by one of your ancestral guides. Is that correct?
I don't know if you can see them, but but of course, you know, I'm a program. But yeah, symbols that were given very directly, like within our meeting. So, you know, I was told at the time that I was in the meeting with you, like I would receive something and I'd know it when I seen it. And then that same night, I was flipping through a book that I've had that I haven't even read. And I saw exactly what, and as soon as I saw it, it was like a bell rang in my head. Like, this is exactly it. And it was just an absolute knowing. And it's not, it wasn't even put together. It was like an alphabet and I had to put together what needed to be said through the guidance. I mean, it's like very custom, if you will. It's just amazing. And I feel like it sounds a lot out there, but really powerful work. And just, yeah, changing my life like minute by minute.
I love it. And what it is so touching to me is that it required a real act of faith on your part to do all of these things that you've chosen to do. And every step of the way, we're sovereign and we get to choose. The ancestors ask something from us that is totally insane. It's great to say, ain't happening, no way. But how wonderful for you to feel the affirmation and support of the guidance that you've received, and to follow that with your heart and incorporate this into your life in such a deep and meaningful way. I love that. And I thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Yeah, I recommend it to anyone. I recommend it.
It's good to wait a week or so if you get guidance to have a tattoo to make sure that it's really what you want.
Oh yeah, I waited several.
Yeah. But you know, when we start really entering into a relationship with the ancestors and we get past that part of the Western mind that's like, yeah, this is ancestors, but am I just making all this up? And this is just like a story I'm telling myself. At some point, No, like it's not anymore. At some point, it's a relationship. It is truly an exchange of understanding, an exchange of energy, an exchange of like gratitude and reciprocity, energy. That's such a gift. And I've definitely had my ancestors ask me for some things that were crazy. Like I do not drink alcohol at all, and I had a guide that said, "I want red wine." I was like, really, man? Red wine. Okay. So I went out and I bought the red wine and I kept in my fridge, and then he was like, I want red wine in a silver goblet. I was like, really? Really? So I got on Amazon and I looked until I could find the small enough silver goblet that it would fit on my altar just right, but the one that felt like it was the right energy. And okay, so I got the silver goblet and I make red wine offering into that silver goblet. I can't make offerings to any other ancestor, any other lineage in that goblet, just him. Okay. And that's an easy enough ask, you know, when a different guide said, I want you to go on your land and find 7 offerings that you will bring to me every single day for 7 weeks. I said, that's not going to happen. Realistically speaking, I want to really show you my faith. Like, I really want to show you that I am here. I'm showing up to this. I'm not going to be one of those ancestors that's like, neat, bye. But that's not realistic. And she said, okay, let me modify that to something that you can work with. And she did. And I ended up engaging in that ritual daily for something like half a year at least. And it changed my life. It changed my relationship with the way I relate with the unseen in a profound way that has affected every part of my life. And so I love that. I love that my own doubts were kind of pushed aside through the process of just showing up and making the offering and being in the ritual. And it doesn't have to be fancy silver goblet with red wine. Sometimes it can literally be lighting a candle or remembering someone's name, or just even calling a lineage to mind and acknowledging that it's there. Because a lot of these lineages, when you go back, like beyond the remembered names of ancestors, there's so much that's forgotten, but that doesn't mean the energy is not still there. That doesn't mean that energy is not flowing down the lineage and moving through us and our DNA and our blood and our bones. It still is. We're still affected by everything that all of those who have come before us have been affected by. And this is just a way that we can say that we're showing up fully for what's happening. And anyway, I could talk about offerings. It's one of my favorite topics in the entire universe. And I could talk about it all night. But I want us to shift to a little bit of experiential before we are completely out of time. So I just want to invite you to get comfy again. Let yourself settle in your space in a meditative way. And again, feel your feet on the floor. Or feel your body resting on your seat. And just let yourself settle. Feeling the breath moving through. And connecting with your own heart. And I want to invite you to call to mind someone that you've lost in your life, someone who's died that you love, someone whose energy feels well and strong and beautiful to you, that you have no reservation about calling to mind. And just let yourself fill with that sense of love and appreciation and happiness that you experience when you remember this person. And as you continue to call this person into your awareness, I want you to ponder for a moment, what kind of beautiful offering does your heart call to make to this person? What kind of offering could you give to them? Something that would delight you and that would delight them. And as you continue to ponder what this offering would be, really let yourself imagine what it would look like, how you would go about presenting it to them. Is there a certain way that you would create it? A certain way that you would give it? How would you make it extra special for them to receive? This offering could be something tangible, or it could be some creative act. The sharing of some memory. And now, I want you to imagine how this person would respond to you as they receive your offering. What can you imagine them doing or saying? And finally, I just want to invite you to send this person all the love that you possibly can send them, all the peace that they can receive, and all the blessings in your heart. Imagining these things showering them wherever they are in a way that they can receive the most. And I want to invite you to stay with that beautiful energy as I share some beautiful words from John O'Donohue. And this is called On Passing a Graveyard. May perpetual light shine upon the faces of all who rest here. May the lives they lived unfold further in spirit. May all their past travails find ease in the kindness of clay. May the remembering earth mind every memory they brought. May the rains from the heavens fall gently upon them. May the wild flowers and grasses whisper their wishes into light. May we reverence the village of presence in the stillness of this silent field. And I offer gratitude for this opportunity for us to come together tonight, to be in community in this sweet and precious way, for us to lean in with our questions, for us to listen a little bit more deeply to the guidance that is inside of us and the guidance that is around us, so that we too may come into deeper relationship with who we are through connecting with our ancestors, and deeper relationship with our ancestors by connecting to the essence of who we truly are. Thank you to the elders, the masters, the teachers, the wise ones, the guides, the guardians, and our radiant well grandmothers and grandfathers, our ancestors. It is an honor to walk this path in your footsteps, and I pray that each of us may receive the guidance in our lives to leave behind footsteps that are worthy for others to follow too. For this and all the blessings that we receive every day of our lives, we thank you.